Welcome guys, at 91 Springboard we are creating the biggest co-working community, and the whole idea is to put a lot of good people together. Actually, when we were looking at career, we think of it that way, where we say MBA or job or startup or this is what everyone does, I'll choose amongst one of them. But I don't think that's the choice you're making. Like, I think the choice you're making at that stage, and which I learned later, is what do I want to do, right? It's not on this versus that. It is more to do with, is there a problem that I feel very passionate about and I want to solve that? If that's the case, then you are an entrepreneur, right? And like, that's what you get into. So to do your own business, to just drop everything and start, it's like, I'm not saying everyone should do that from a career perspective where they're saying, I want to be an entrepreneur, I'll drop everything and start. Because it does depend on what idea you have, what problem you're trying to solve, whether that makes sense or not, and working towards that. So every entrepreneur does need to find a team and a founder, and it's not easy. It is, finding a co-founder is almost like a marriage, right? So you need to meet a lot of people. I don't think there's a formula to it. Basically what you need to do is figure out various people who have complementary skills, keep reaching out to them, keep discussing your idea with them, and figure out who bites, right? What I would look for is, are they as passionate about the idea as I am? Are they constructive in their input? And are they someone who I love to work with every day? Like, truly thinking of it, I think I spend more time with my co-founders today than I spend with my wife, right? Because all my waking hours I'm here. So it's a more important marriage, and you need to sort of filter it accordingly. Let not my wife hear this though. I think a couple of basic rules that we put up, which I recommend to every entrepreneur, is, once we decided certain equity in the beginning, it's not something we keep going back to and negotiate. So it wasn't that we go back 2 months later and say, hey, I'm working a lot more, give me 2% extra or anything. So once we figured a figure, that's it. It is vested and we'll all will earn it over time. But the slight changes here or there is not something we discuss anymore. That's one. The second rule that we put as a fundamental rule is, all our time belongs to 91 Springboard, which means I'm not doing anything on the side, or if I'm doing anything on the side, that belongs to 91 Springboard too. And that just ensured all of us were aligned. And when we were giving time to something, it meant it's a board decision rather than an individual decision. So even if, say, I am mentoring a startup and startup gives me advisory equity, that's not mine, that's 91 Springboard's. So how the responsibilities were designated, and probably this is how it happens in every startup, To begin with, everyone does everything and everyone knows everything. So your 4 co-founders, all of us knew everything, all of us was doing everything. And the work was fundamentally divided on basis of who has more time today, right? So ये करना है, you have more time, यार चल ये तू संभाल ले, sort of a thing. But then as business grows, you realize that one, everyone being involved in everything is just not possible from time perspective. And then over time you do recognize, like, while you start working together as co-founders, you recognize what someone is good at, what someone is not good at, what he enjoys more, etc. And on basis of that, we kept sort of dividing stuff amongst us. And it's been enough amount of juggling also, like, in the sense, it's not like what we decided 3 years ago is what it's working today. So every now and then we sit together, we figure out why it's working, why it's not working, who has better skills where, and we re-divide the work. That's how it happens for us. I keep doing my surveys. I keep talking to senior entrepreneurs to just understand how are they managing these things, on managing their time in the day from efficiency perspective. What it seems to me is people who are a lot more senior, probably sort of 3 years into what we are at right now, is when they're able to manage it better, and just because they have a more senior middle management team going. So then a lot of issues don't come up to their level and they can manage things better. Even in our case, I think the amount of variety I was handling in my day every day a year ago to today has reduced. And that's fundamentally because we have an amazing team now, and I don't need to sort of put my nose in a lot of things. So I think that will help. I have generated my own tricks to also be able to manage that. So I block 2 days in a week for not doing any meetings and just doing work. Things I've done is there's time blocked for my team every week, and this is like a non-negotiable time in which I do spend with my team. If I can make them work efficiently, I can ensure my work gets reduced too. And that time I spend in ensuring they get the right inputs, wherever they need me, they get that. So that's one bit that's clear. A lot of my day is just meetings. In the meetings I'm trying to be a lot more efficient, where going into a meeting, I try to ensure I have data required for that meeting. And getting out of the meeting, I try to ensure we've concluded on the outputs and the next steps. If I don't have data for that meeting, I'll cancel the meeting. Work-life balance just makes it sound like these are two opposite things which you're trying to balance. For an entrepreneur, it's just one, like work and life is just one thing. So you just make it work. So I would talk to my wife, I'll ensure I spend some time there, I spend some time here, whichever part of it needs my more time becomes a priority at that instant. But rarely am I trying to figure out a balance. So to ensure that the culture and the style remains in the way the organization grows as we add more people, there are a few basic things that we look at. One, we ensure one of us is involved in the hiring. We are actively involved in the training process, and the culture fit part is very important for us. While hiring, while as we grow during day to day, the culture fit is important. And we do emphasize a lot on ensuring we communicate our vision, values. So these two are communicated a lot, and a combination of all of this helps organization moving on the same rail. As an entrepreneur, you go to these various events to meet a lot of people, right?
Yes.
Think of that as you have access to that every day, right? So there are about 300 people in this building, about 80 enterprises in variety of domains. There's someone who's a designer, someone who's an accountant, someone who's a tech expert. So if you have a problem, right, you can just walk up to someone and say, hey, how do you do this? Oh, it's superb. The current ecosystem for tech entrepreneurs, I think it's like it was never before. Everything, I think, like tons of investors available, just like the amount of knowledge available online on everything, from fundraising to how to grow the startup, how to market, this, that. Yeah. What I feel is a strong company is one where the product is something which, product or service, whatever, right, the user really loves. He wants it and they're willing to pay for it, and they're willing to pay the right price for it. I think that's like a fundament. Second, I would love to have an entry barrier around this. So you've done something awesome, you're doing that well, but tomorrow if 10 people are there and maybe they're throwing more money at this solution, can you still manage to retain your best part, retain your customers and grow while doing that? I think if these two are there, they are fundamental for strong companies as a measure. I think, so if I think of how does a company scale up and like the basic rules that an entrepreneur should be playing by, I think there are, like, this is very simple. It's, again, my Marwadi blood speaking, it's just dhanda, right? So what is it that I'm doing? Is my customer happy and is he deriving a value out of it? Is he willing to pay for it? And whatever he's willing to pay, am I making money off it? If this is true, let me now just keep scaling this up. And everything in the back which goes into doing this is something I do keep optimizing. So if it means team, kind of people who are coming in, the processes I'm setting up, all of that I keep optimizing. And the key goal being customers should be happy, they should be paying, and I should be making money while they're paying. As long as I'm able to achieve this and keep focusing on this, I'll scale up. Almost every entrepreneur I talk to, I do tell them that, like, dude, investor gives you money for returns, So this is the money you have to return. Like, just like think of it as a load on you, right? That you've taken the money and you have to return that. Versus thinking of it as a free grant money which I can experiment with. चलेगा तो चलेगा नहीं तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है, right? So one, that. Second, investors aren't like looking to support you and like they're all over the place trying to find entrepreneurs, and the moment you jump, they'll be running after you with a check. It is investment. They will be pretty stingy about it. They will want to ensure they can get returns out of it, and that's when they'll choose you. So I'm a much bigger fan of bootstrapping. Till you can. I'll not say bootstrap forever, because if you're restricting your growth by not taking money that you can get to grow, that would be stupid. But in the beginning, I think bootstrapping is important. Fundamentally, I do think it's important, and I'll qualify that. I don't think it's a valor part of it, right? Like a lot of us make it feel like I bootstrapped, and because I went through that pain, there's something like I have a certain shield in front of me. I don't think that's the important part. The important part is when you go through the bootstrapping phase, this element of, is my customer willing to pay me, and the value I'm giving to him, the cost that it goes from my end to create that value versus what he's paying, is there a difference there or not? And this just gets ingrained during bootstrapping because you have to make money while bootstrapping. And I think that creates a very strong company. I think one of the mistakes we did in the initial part of the journey was, so while we were bootstrapping and hence we were not spending enough money, I do think we were also stupid in our choice of where we were spending the money. In the sense that because we were bootstrapping, we shouldn't assume our customers will be happy with the inferior product too. So for example, the first center we set up, we didn't put up ACs there. This was a basement and we thought it will be cool enough, and we tried to sort of pull it off for a certain period of time. It was uncomfortable, but we thought, okay, because it's that price, customers will be willing. Stupid idea. That was a bad time. We lost a lot of customers. When we finally realized, what are we doing? Like, customers need a certain value, and if we aren't giving that to them, it's just wrong. And then we took out all our credit cards, we bought ACs on credit, and but all I mean to say is, at one end, you should be spending less and not unnecessarily spending, but at the other end, you should be spending wisely too. So for entrepreneurs to educate themselves, I think basics of coding, if you're a coder, is necessary. So if you're a coder, being kick-ass at coding is necessary. If you're not a coder, at least knowing basics of technology, what goes in where, product design, UI. I'm focusing a lot on tech entrepreneurs while saying all of this. So UI, what does a good product look like, etc. is necessary. I think basic skills around marketing, negotiation, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. will be necessary. And the social skills around how to just talk to people, network with them, and how to manage a team. Read up a lot about it. This is all on a generic level. Then of course the sector that you pick up, you have to be a pro in that. Like, you should know why things are the way they are in your sector. So in our case, I can remember this was mid 2013 or later, when we looked at our bank accounts and we realized we don't have money for paying. We have some money to pay some salaries this month, but we can't cover the whole of it. And that was a super stressful situation. Basically what we did was, all of us co-founders, we holed up together in a room and we said, guys, what do we do? And we sort of figured out there are a few things which our customers are willing to pay for. So one of us should focus more on that. The other, so I was designated to go around, get some consulting projects which will help us survive for a certain period of time. And we were able to solve it. To be successful in whatever you're doing, whether it's a startup or it's a big company or whatever, you have to work hard, right? you have to ensure you keep learning and you keep improving yourself. It's even more so true in startup, and simply because you won't have multiple layers of management to handhold you in everything, and you'll be given responsibility a lot faster.